This is CBC Vancouver News.
Eight and a half centimeters thick, a really good, clear, strong ice. That's a little on the low side.
From Snowmageddon to the big melt, the concern shifts to avalanche danger and ice safety. Plus,
this is why she ended up 20 years later with a full-blown addiction to opiates.
A fierce advocate for drug users dies from a toxic drug supply, the message her family wants to share. And
just about brings tears to my eyes. Yeah, it is amazing.
we swing by a long-standing basketball tournament featuring the Surrey RCMP. Is it now in jeopardy, though, over the city's uncertain policing future? Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin with developing news out of Abbotsford tonight. A man has died after being shot in a mall parking lot. It happened outside the Seven Oaks Shopping Centre just before 6 p.m. Police found a 25-year-old man had been shot there. Officers tried CPR, but he died at the scene from his injuries. Investigators believe this was a targeted shooting. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team has now taken over the case, and we will keep you updated with more details on this story as we get them. After being walloped with snow this week, the rain is now making it disappear almost as quickly as it arrived, and it's creating dangerous conditions in the mountains, flood risks across the city, and hazards for those still wanting to skate on lakes and ponds. Sharia Sherstri has more on the warnings to outdoor enthusiasts.
First came the snow, then the rain, and up in the mountains, a ramped-up avalanche risk.
This heavy loading from new snow, rain, and wind is creating very dangerous avalanche conditions as heavy snowfall transitions to rain and saturates the upper snowpack.
She says conditions are ripe for problems and recommends staying away from avalanche terrain.
Backcountry recreators should be looking to avoid steep slopes where wet, loose avalanches may occur.
And a warning from North Shore Rescue if you do get caught up in the backcountry.
If you choose to go out in avalanche terrain today and something happens and you call for help, there's a decent chance that we're not coming.
In the city, crowd flocked to frozen lakes and ponds during this recent blast of winter. But warnings are in place for people still lacing up for outdoor skating. The Vancouver Park Board says it's too dangerous to skate outside right now because the ice is only deemed safe if at least 18 centimeters thick. Ken Ashley from BC Lake Stewardship Society makes sure he comes prepared before hitting the ice.
For safety, usually carry a ball around with a rope, because invariably you're going to find somebody that's fallen in.
He drills holes and uses his tape to measure the ice thickness.
It was about 8.5 centimeters thick, a really good, clear, strong ice. That's a little on the low side for safety.
And he recommends others in Metro Vancouver do the same before stepping onto frozen lakes. It comes as rain turns snow into slush, causing its own set of problems.
All the slush is very hard pushing the stroller. Times we're dragging it backwards.
Definitely a little slippery, a little slushy. Not minding it too much though.
I bought some rubber boots, and then after 2 days of walking through the slush and the snow, they busted apart.
Snow has also left many catch basins in Vancouver clogged up. The city says crews will be out this weekend clearing storm drains, trying to get ahead of the massive melt before it causes flooding problems. Sharia Sherstri, CBC News, Vancouver.
An update to a bizarre crash at a parking garage at UBC this week. The driver who died has now been identified as a firefighter from Delta. The sedan crashed through a concrete wall on the second level of the Thunderbird parkade and plummeted to the ground below. This was Thursday. Mark Jubinville is now being mourned by firefighters all across the Lower Mainland. Delta's mayor and fire chief both shared their condolences on social media and have ordered flags to be flown at half-mast. RCMP say investigators are still working to figure out what caused the crash. The man tragically killed by a snowplow in Abbotsford on Thursday has been identified as 31-year-old Anthony Hetzel. And now a close family friend is raising money to help support his widow and toddler son.
We're really overwhelmed with the amount of support, actually. The first 10,000 donations or so. $10,000 of donations was almost entirely friends and family. That just shows how many lives he touched. I know Ashley and her family are really appreciative of everything, and it's taking a lot of pressure off them right now.
She last spent time with him Tuesday playing with their kids. Abbotsford police say a private snowplow struck Hetzel after his car slid into the ditch and he got out to try to find help. This fundraiser for his family has already generated upwards of $65,000. To the Southern Interior now, and in Oliver specifically, the ER at South Okanagan General Hospital is closing temporarily once again. The emergency department will shut its doors from 6 tonight until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. This closure is once again being blamed on a doctor shortage. Interior Health says patients needing emergency care should go to Penticton Regional Hospital instead. A similar closure of Oliver's ER happened last week and several times last year. In the Kootenays, a woman who advocated for drug users has died from BC's toxic drug supply. Krista Smith was one of 58 people in Cranbrook whose lives were cut short since the province declared a public health emergency in 2016. As Corey Bullock now tells us, loved ones say more urgently now it needs to be done to help save lives, and a warning that some people may find details in this story upsetting.
She was a kind soul. She would help anybody that came her way in any way she could.
Jim and Alice Smith remember their daughter, Krista. She died in November. Her father says she was another victim of the toxic drug crisis. Her death was the kind of loss she worked tirelessly to prevent.
She had a wonderful childhood, I think.
After a few years on Vancouver Island, Krista's family moved to Kimberley when she was in grade 7. A car crash when she was a teenager changed her life. To manage her pain, she started taking prescribed painkillers and was never able to stop.
And this is why she ended up 20 years later with a full-blown addiction to opiates.
Jim and Alice say they were always there for their daughter. They helped her secure an apartment so she had a warm place of her own to go home to. In November, they took a trip and returned to a horrifying discovery.
I let myself in after yelling through the door and no answer, and I discovered her myself on the floor. And that's, the coroner had said she had been passed for a few days at that time.
Jim says Krista died from a lethal combination of fentanyl and methamphetamines. The coroner has not yet confirmed a cause of death. In the community, she's remembered for helping others like her.
Krista was a martyr, all right? Krista had done a ton of really good things for us, and Krista also came from really good stock, really good people.
Krista helped launch a peer network to help people who use drugs, people like Jessica Lamb.
There were 6 of us that this group started with. I think the thing that makes me the most sad right now about all of this is of the 6 of us that started this group, there's only 3 of us that are left.
For people who loved her, Krista's death is all too symbolic. She was trying to alleviate her own and others' suffering from toxic drugs and likely died from that poisoned supply.
We may not be able to resolve it right now, but we don't have an effective response for it. And especially in the East Kootenays, we're a small enough community, we should be able to have a response that has some effect.
For Jim and Alice, Krista's death created a reality they never wanted.
Children are not supposed to die before their parents.
Krista was 42. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
To Coquitlam now, and RCMP say they are seeing a dramatic rise in vehicles on the road without valid insurance. So far this year, Mounties have issued 24 fines. That's more than double over this time last year. ICBC discontinued license plate decals in 2022, meaning no more visual cues of insurance expiry dates. Drivers caught without valid insurance will have their vehicles towed and could be fined up to $600. Well, hundreds of Surrey students have been battling it out on the court this week, vying for the title of Surrey RCMP Basketball Classic Champions. But the annual tournament is happening against the backdrop of the controversial transition from the Surrey RCMP to the municipal police force. And while questions still loom about the future of policing in Surrey, organizers say this event, now in its 32nd year, isn't going anywhere. Janella Hamilton has that story.
Former Enver Creek secondary student Rajan Rai has been playing in this tournament since grade 8. He says it made him want to become an RCMP officer.
It's been a journey. It's been 16 years for me to be involved in this tournament ever since a kid. From where it started and where we saw the growth to where we are now, it's incredible.
In 1992, its inaugural year, there were 8 teams competing. Now there are 48 teams of juniors and seniors, all vying for that championship title.
Just about brings tears to my eyes. Yeah, it is amazing.
Retired RCMP officer and tournament co-founder Norman Massey says the goal of the tournament is to create positive bonds between police and youth.
When you get into investigations and you need the community's help, whether they're a witness to a crime or they have information that provides assistance to the RCMP in solving a crime, that bridge is so important. They have to trust you.
Grade 11 student Randy Griffard says events like this break down barriers.
I think it's always important to kind of bring the, people with that kind of power and just regular, people to kind of connect like that. Honestly, I just view them as any other person with a job that they have to do.
We have had officers that have played in this tournament when they were students, and then they became members, and now they're still part of this amazing tournament.
Money raised through the tournament goes towards scholarships for students. This year, the event is honoring one of its co-founders, Kevin Du Bois, who died last spring after a lengthy battle with cancer. For these students, organizers say the chance to play sports can make a world of difference.
Some of my most rewarding responses back from other students has been just that you've kept us out of some of the trouble that so many people get into. And that's always been kind of the thing that's driven me.
He says regardless of Surrey's future police force,
this tournament will go on because it is for Surrey kids.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Surrey.
A BC man has won Canadian Geographic Photographer of the Year. Brandon Broderick from Tumbler Ridge says he was shocked when he found out he won the top prize, not to mention the $5,000 that comes with it. He says he loves the challenge of trying to capture compelling images of wild animals.
It happens quick. A lot of times, I get 30 seconds with an animal, so there's not really much time I can't tell them to do anything. I can't say, hey, actually, can you just go back over there for a second?
Broderick describes his nature photography as ethical, meaning he leaves immediately if he senses that he is disturbing an animal's peace. The March-April issue of Canadian Geographic featuring his photos, by the way, is available now. Well, shoveling snow can be very hard on your back, especially for older folks. And that's why a retired Vancouver school custodian has created a special shovel specifically for seniors. Check it out.
So this is the senior's shovel. This is how it works. I am Paul Rebral. Since I'm already getting old, so I developed this one to save my back. So you just put it aside, then back in the Philippines. When I was a kid, I don't have the luxury of buying kids, so I'd make my own toys. Instead of lifting the shovel, you have to just down like that. Then you shovel like that, down, so. And you turn it in the side, then you can dump the snow there. Oh, the parts are junk actually from the school. This one they use for the electrician, the tube for molding the electrical or something like that. And this one this is the hand truck. This is a garbage can that I shape it. So I just buy the cable. Necessity is the mother of invention. You can dump it there.
Has creativity always been really important to you?
Oh yeah, because it motivates me to go to work every day.
And it's a scene that is a sure bet every time it snows, the traditional mass snowball fight at UBC. Organizers say roughly 300 people, mostly students, but also some faculty, turned out for Thursday's event. A lack of sufficient snow meant this was the first snowball fight since 2019. Up next, an escalation in the Middle East. Iran blames Israel for a deadly airstrike in Damascus. We'll have the latest from overseas after the break. Welcome back. Let's take you to the Middle East, where Iran is blaming Israel for a deadly airstrike today in Damascus. Israel has not confirmed or denied the attack, but Iran is vowing to retaliate. As Philip Lishanek reports, it's fueling fresh concerns about the spread of the Israeli-Hamas war in the region.
The aftermath of a missile strike on a building in Syria's capital used by Iranian advisors to President Bashir al-Assad's government, killing at least 5 military personnel from Iran, according to media in Tehran. Iran's president blames Israel and vows to retaliate, calling it a desperate attempt to spread instability in the region. But that's already happening as the war between Hamas and Israel grows into a wider conflict. Today, dozens of missiles were fired at this U.S. airbase in Iraq's western desert. The Pentagon reported yesterday that there have been hundreds of attacks on U.S. forces in the region since October. In November, the U.S. retaliated against Iranian-backed militants in Iraq.
And the U.S. has already reacted to that with an airstrike on those particular Shia militia groups in Iraq. So you are looking at an escalation. The West is getting dragged into this.
U.S. forces were sent to the region as a deterrent, but it's raised the possibilities for a direct conflict with Iran's proxies in Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon, or other non-state actors, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, or ISIS affiliates.
There are various entities that want that opportunity to try and inflict casualties on U.S. or British forces.
While Israel continues its retaliation in Gaza for the October 7th attacks by Hamas, today thousands protested in Tel Aviv against the ongoing military operation. Some aid has been allowed in thanks to a deal brokered by France and Qatar.
We welcome any increase in aid coming in as the needs are so desperate, but we at the Norwegian Refugee Council have concerns because aid should never be politicized. It should never be something that needs to be negotiated upon.
Another flashpoint for potential further escalation of this conflict, Houthi rebels continue attacks in the Red Sea. The U.S.-led coalition of countries has vowed to keep this critical cargo ship choke point open, hoping to avoid an economic and security disaster during a U.S. election year. Philip Lishanok, CBC News, Toronto.
Economic numbers are being wielded in the U.S. election campaign in both directions. Shares have risen to record heights, but with many Americans feeling the impact of inflation, the state of the economy is being used to attack President Biden's record. William Denslow reports.
For supporters of the president, it's a ringing endorsement. For the first time in over 2 years, the markets have hit a new record high on Wall Street. Consumer confidence is up at its highest level since the summer of 2021, according to fresh data. President Biden hopes that will translate to votes come November, in a showdown that could see him up against Donald Trump in a 2020 election rematch.
My predecessors like to say, America is a failing nation. In my faith, bless me, Father, for his sin. I mean, come on. A failing nation. And by the way, did you hear he wants to see the stock market crash? Because he does not want it now. We're doing well. He acknowledging by that we're doing pretty damn well economically.
Holiday spending in the US rose more than analysts expected. A promising sign for the economy, but inflation remains stubbornly high. Biden's handling of the economy has featured prominently on the campaign trail for Republican presidential hopefuls like Nikki Haley.
When I think about my kids, I want a president who's going to be focused on what we need to do to fix the economy.
In an election cycle, momentum for a candidate is essential. Chief investment strategist at CFRA Research, Sam Stovall, says a strengthening economy in the 3 months leading into an election has proven to be significant.
If the market is higher in that 3-month period, then the incumbent tends to get reelected, and that has been correct about 85% of the time since World War II.
The risk of recession has fallen dramatically in the US over recent months, but wider concerns over the health of the economy still linger. In the race to the White House, you can count on the economy to be a major issue in the minds of voters. William Denslow for CBC News, New York.
A new crew of 4 has arrived at the International Space Station, and their voyage was organized entirely by Axiom Space, a private company. The vessel and rocket were also privately run by Elon Musk's SpaceX. Among the arrivals was Turkey's first astronaut. This crew will spend 2 weeks in space and conduct roughly 30 experiments. And a surprise for passengers today on a subway line in Istanbul. The metal pole on the right side of the tracks is a drill bit, and it's not supposed to be there. Construction workers either didn't follow directions or had bad ones and wound up drilling all the way through the subway tunnel's ceiling. The damage has since been repaired. You're looking at a live shot of Burrard Inlet facing the North Shore, and the rain has replaced the snow in the forecast, at least for coastal sections. I'll take you through the wet week ahead with the 5-day forecast next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On January 24th, join CBC British Columbia's Matt Allen as host of a special screening of an episode from CBC's Black Life Untold Stories, an 8-part docuseries that reframes the rich and complex histories of Black experiences in Canada. Presented in partnership with the Black Life Impact Foundation, the event features a screening of one episode and a Q&A session. Tickets at cbc.ca/BC.
And it's time for the 5-day forecast, starting with those overnight temperatures. Keep in mind, average overnight lows for parts of the Okanagan like Kelowna, even Kamloops, around -7, -8 degrees. So still a bit on the warmer side, but that doesn't mean the precipitation will stop. Likely coming down as snow, and then, of course, more in the coastal sections, rain. And here's how it looks. You can see this next system is really coming in bits and pieces and not really letting up at all for the next couple of days. That's why we'll see those pockets of showers along the coast and those periods of flurries and snow through the further inland sections as well. And so this will continue. The worst of it's certainly over, but it's not stopping by any means. Here's, as we said, the forecast for tomorrow. We do have a warning, a freezing rain warning in effect from Environment Canada. That's covering parts of the Caribou, even the central coastal sections as well. So do be careful if you're driving on the roads. And then for the south coast, lots of rain on the way. It's warmed up enough that it won't come down as snow anymore. But Environment Canada is also warning of localized flooding because of all the rain that's set to come this week. And that is your late news for this Saturday, January 20th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online as well. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks so much for watching this weekend. Good night.